Hey there, friend. It's Jewell here. Hope you are having an amazing day as always. I'm coming to you today to share from a topic that I've heard from many of you is something that's been keeping you stuck. All right, so I always ask you to share with me what's keeping you stuck. What are some of the things that you're struggling with? And one of the things that I've heard from many of you is that you are stuck on the startup capital for your business. So if you're watching this and you haven't yet started your business, and one of the reasons that hasn't happened yet is because you don't know what to do about finding the startup money or how to find startup money or all the different things about startup money, then you're definitely going to want to take some notes and watch this video. Now, if you already have a new business, you're still going to get something out of this, because if you have a new business and you want to grow your business, you'll need to understand some of the different types of startup capital. Okay. Oftentimes I ask you for questions. Where are you stuck? This is how I come up with topics for a lot of these videos and the trainings that I provide for you. So keep them coming, keep the comments coming and emailing me and letting me know what you want to hear more about, and I will share in future videos. But today we're tackling the topic of startup capital. Okay. How do you get past this hurdle? So first of all, let's talk about why startup capital is important. So if you are just starting out, you will need some amount of money to get your business off the ground. So you need startup capital to fund your operations. And so typically that's everything from if you need to rent office space or warehouse space, if you need to purchase inventory of any kind, marketing costs to get the word out about your business, business cards, equipment, anything you could think about related to getting a business started to support you and creating the revenue and the profits for the business. That's what the startup capital is for, and that's why it's so important. Now, the second piece that you have to really get your mind wrapped around is really how much money do you actually need, right? Because the biggest part that I see is that people are overestimating how much money they need to get their business started. And so you do want some level of clarity about how much money do you actually need to get your business off the ground. And depending on how much money you need will really drive which are the best types of capital for you to pursue. And so if you have a very capital intensive business, like something that where you have to produce an actual product, then I'm going to imagine your number is going to be higher than someone who is looking to create a service-based business, for example, that might be virtual and they don't require much more than some technology setups. And so they don't need a big office or they don't need tons of equipment. So typically, on average, service businesses typically require less capital than product-based businesses. Not always, but typically that's the case. And so in your particular case, what kind of business are you starting? And have you done the homework yet to know exactly how much money you will need to get it off the ground? So if you haven't done that yet, that's actually the first step in you getting past this hurdle of startup capital, right? And exactly how much you need. So you're not just pulling a number out of the sky, and maybe you don't need as much as you might think you need, but you won't know until you actually take the time to start to dig through and do the homework and the research for your particular type of business. Okay, so that's the first step. Determine how much money you actually need. Okay. Now we're going to talk about what are some of the different types of capital. And there's several different types of capitals. And so one of the first categories that you're probably the most familiar with would be debt. So that would be either getting a loan or a credit card or some kind of credit line of some kind, right? And so with the loan, typically a business loan, it's going to allow you to build up business credit, which of course can be beneficial as you go on and grow your business. And obviously with the loan, there will be repayment terms. And so you have to have some idea of the revenue that you're going to generate to be able to repay the loans, right? So that's the first category of the type of capital is debt. The second category is something that is typically available to companies that are planning innovative products or services or larger company model, and that is investor capital. And so that could come in the form of something as sophisticated as venture capital or private equity if you're planning to build a business typically into the multi seven figures, or something as simple as having family members or friends crowdfund and contribute investor capital to you. And typically when people are investing in your business, there may be some percentage of ownership that they take, especially if it's a venture capital private equity for sure, but friends or family, there may be some flexibility. But that's the second category, right? Investor capital. So the third category, which I have heard from many of you asking about, is the category of grants. And a grant is exactly what it sounds like. It's money that's given to you that you do not have to repay like you would have to repay a loan or credit card. With a grant, those are typically given by local organizations or corporations. And so I will tell you that a lot of grants that are out there are for existing businesses to either kind of weather some particular storm like the COVID pandemic or to grow their existing businesses. So if you're watching this and you have an existing business, there are typically more grants available for you rather than for people who are just starting. Now, if you're just starting, though, there are some grants out there available for you. Again, like I said, from local organizations as well as corporations. You just simply need to Google your local area and type in small business grants, and you'll see a number of resources pop up. But for most people, what the other option is that they don't know about are competitions. So a lot of organizations, both universities as well as private organizations, have these annual competitions for startup businesses, or people who are starting up businesses, and they will award you a certain amount of money to get your business started. And oftentimes it also comes with other perks like some kind of marketing or coaching or something of that nature. But that is also a form of a small business grant that many of you watching this could be potentially eligible for if you were just looking for it. So that's the grant category. The next category, which is the one most people think of outside of credit cards, is savings and personal savings and self-funding your business. So to me, of course, that's one of the best ways, right? Because you don't owe anybody anything. And of course, you don't have to give away any ownership. However, it's not always something that's available to you depending on your current financial situation. But if you can self-fund the startup costs for your business, absolutely, I think it can be a win-win for you to get things off the ground. And typically that will happen from savings that you're accumulating from other resources like your current job or elsewhere. And the last category that I couldn't figure out necessarily where it fits into this, and it doesn't quite fit into any of those categories I listed, and maybe it's in a self-funded category, but it's something that I think is a little more unique. It's certainly a way that I've used to help me, and that is to use clients' payments, right? So if you have new clients that you can book before you're getting things off the ground, that is a way to essentially fund your business to get started, right? And if you can get people to commit to working with you in advance of the services, you can use that capital to fund the startup, right? And of course, you're going to commit to delivering whatever the services or products that your business is centered around. And that can be a way to self-fund the startup cost for your business. And so for me, when I was just starting out, I actually used a combination of savings and clients, right? Just basically payments from clients and new deals that I secured. And it just so happened the particular business that I started, it's a service-based business. So I really didn't have a lot of startup capital outside of computer and a phone, which I already actually had, and some business cards and a little bit of marketing materials. I didn't have a huge startup cost. And so if this has been a hurdle for you, one of the things you might want to consider is the type of business I want to start. Is it super capital intensive? Is there another business I could start that doesn't require as much capital? But even if it's capital intensive, I've given you some different categories of options. And so at this point, what you really need to decide is, what's the right type of capital for your type of business, right? So based on how much capital you need, because remember we talked about that in the first step, and based on the type of business that you want to start, which of these categories is the right type of capital for you to pursue? So is it going to be a loan, right? So getting a business loan or some kind of business credit line? Is it going to be getting investors for your business, whether it's friends and family or a more formal structure like a venture capital? You also have grants, which I think is a really exciting way to just get experience even talking about your business, but also get some money in that you don't have to pay back to anyone. And then, of course, it's the self-funded route where you are building a business from savings. And then the last one that I love that no one really talks about is basically building your business by essentially pre-selling services to clients and using that revenue to fund the operations for your startup. So I hope that is super helpful for you. Certainly email me, comment, let me know which of these categories you're going to probably pursue and what resonated the most with you. And of course, always let me know what are the questions that you have, the struggles, the things that are holding you back that you would love me to cover in a future upcoming training. And I'd be happy to do that. And until then, have an amazing day. Take care, guys.